Yes, empowering knowledge workers is the topic of the conference, and especially in government and business, the topic of today. I want to not go into AI for a moment. We will talk about AI certainly, but maybe as a first round, just as a quick recap, what were inspiring moments for you three in today's talks? Is there something where you say, okay, this resonated with me, just to give us a quick recap of what you've learned today or heard today, where you did you feel yourself contradicted, or would we agree on most of the topics? So maybe this could be a first round.
So I was really surprised about the parallels between no matter what platform you use, about the parallels like dealing with structured knowledge and unstructured knowledge and how to bring this together. Yeah. Usually this is from different worlds, and especially yesterday already we went really deep into the structured world, but even today it was a topic how to link structured to unstructured knowledge. And of course I got some additional arguments why wikis are great for AI, additional to my more hypertext focused view.
Well, it's a little bit of an easy answer, but it's also a very sincere and true answer. All of the talks were inspiring today, from our opening keynote through the different sessions. What I took away is the sense that everyone is sort of working on the same problem, coming from a different point of view, a different approach. And what I see happening is there's this idea that you can store structured data in wiki articles, and you can do things with it more than just be a knowledge base. And I feel like the entire community is starting to, this is resonating with everyone, and the future of MediaWiki applications is almost guaranteed to utilize data stored in pages and being operationalized within the wiki, outside the wiki, not just as a knowledge base for people to go to look up the answer to a question, but as a to just grow and build knowledge that is being actively used. And so let me back up just a little bit, because I skipped over something I wanted to reply to you on, is with regards to knowledge users. It occurs to me that everyone is a knowledge user. So everyone in the organization, in a modern organization, it doesn't have to be an IT-focused organization. People who show up for work every day, regardless of what they do, there is a dimension of what they do that is knowledge-oriented. They may not think of themselves as knowledge workers. So my approach is to try to understand the dimension of everyone's daily activities and see how that fits in to improve the knowledge posture of the organization. And that goes hand in hand with trying to contain that data in a structured way that we can get it out, make sense of it, people can make sense of it, the machines can make sense of it, and the humans and the machines can work together to be more efficient and more productive. That's what I think is being talked about, and the AI plays into that. The different approaches to structured data and knowledge management. I think it's converging, and I'm excited about that convergence.
Yes, agreed. I would say that what has struck me most today is two things. The first is just, every talk was inspiring. What people are doing, how they conceive of knowledge, and the use of having a knowledge management system to disseminate that knowledge, to share that knowledge, to store that knowledge, to find that knowledge. And some of the extensions that have been demonstrated in the last 2 days really help facilitate that and give power to it. The other really striking thing that has occurred to me over the course of listening to all of this is how far we've come. I started working with MediaWiki in 2007, 2008, and was, as was mentioned earlier, you know, we had a very strong advocate for one of the projects that I was working on who was like, it didn't happen if it's not in the wiki. And we went to different government customers and, you know, said, explain to me, you know, tell us about your data. And we did sort of an object-oriented decomposition. We figured out, and then we built extensions to help facilitate sharing their knowledge. And we custom crafted the knowledge bases around their type of data. And it occurs to me how far we've come since then, how much easier it would be to do that same work today based on the growth of MediaWiki, the growth of the extension landscape, our understanding of knowledge and how it should live within a knowledge management system. And when I joined the foundation, the Wikimedia Foundation, little over 7.5 years ago, I came because of a firm belief in sharing the sum of all knowledge, not just Wikimedia knowledge, but all knowledge. There is so much power in this concept of sharing knowledge, and this community has done so much for doing so. So thank you all for all your contributions. And we've come really far, and we've got a long way to go, but oh my gosh, all of the things, you know, from, yes, AI, but also the new extensions, the new understanding of knowledge is really empowering us to go even further. And I think that there's a lot of power in where we're going, and we can do amazing things.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from here to the first round? Yeah.
So yeah, first of all, thank you so much. The keynotes were amazing. I'm going to wear a different hat now because I volunteer for a nonprofit in Brazil that is focusing on democratizing fact-checking and fighting disinformation. So my question to you is that they are knowledge workers, like journalists working in fighting disinformation. They are knowledge workers, and still there are many gaps on the open data infrastructure and workflows, or how our software shaped for this specific kind of task, which is fighting disinformation. So I think that it's more like maybe a question to you based on all your experience, all your incredible knowledge about MediaWiki or knowledge management, why you're failing in fighting disinformation with all the technology that we have.
That's a tough one. I'll take the microphone just long enough to say that, so in my world, we don't really, so I work with local internal organizational knowledge. We don't have disinformation as much as we have outdated information. So I'll try to translate the problem from you have multiple truth claims and trying to figure out which truth claim is the right truth claim is maybe the general problem that is true in the public sector as well as the private wiki world. And I don't have a simple answer to that. Yeah, I don't. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, coming back to the structured, non-structured thing and adding something I forgot when I started the first round. So one answer, of course, could be even more granular, better, more semantic modeling, and then and then only the right modeling or representation of the facts will survive. But I'm not sure. As you go down the road, make it more granular and so on, this could also lead or not help, simply not help. So one moment that really struck me was I tried to convey it in the opening talk, but one moment struck me with a colleague who reminded us of user experience. And then you said, wow, we are so far, and really you are in terms of structuring knowledge, we are far ahead now, talking from an industry, large corporation industry perspective. The options, we are far, far ahead of what is often needed, but the challenge for semantic technologies, I would say, is having an excellent user experience and competing on that. I mean, when I saw the stuff here built on Vue.js and all that stuff, that goes into the right direction, but this is, I mean, also not a simple answer, but a way to get more. You mentioned journalists and so on. You need to have excellent user experience to get those folks on the systems. That is an answer for someone who did some work years ago in UX, you would call it today.
I would just like to continue on that point. I will be holding a talk tomorrow, and the third slide literally starts with disinformation. So let's have a long talk about this later. I think there's a limit as to what knowledge can do in this equation. So if you say, okay, knowledge solves all problems, then the impact of Wikipedia should have been much, much, much greater. So I think Wikipedia already approaches what we could call a common consensus, or is a replica of what the world could consider consensus. But I think there are many other factors, for example, emotions or motivation or experience, all those aspects. And I think those are other variables that should come into consideration as soon as the knowledge is there. So if the knowledge is there, okay, now let's work on emotion. Where are the people coming from? What are their fears? And all of those aspects, I think, are much more important as soon as there's a solid knowledge base.
Okay.
I was going to answer about the disinformation.
Oh, sure.
I didn't get a chance to answer Matthias. So the one thing that occurs to me, not necessarily as a solution by itself, but just recognizing the difference between different types of knowledge management systems, and acknowledging the fact that some of the enterprise corporate wikis that we all work in are, I would say, a closed system. Yeah. And that's one of the things that, that really differentiated when there were questions of vandalism, for example, in some of our wikis. When we would go to a different customer and be telling them the value of knowledge management systems, the two key things that we often had people come with a concern about were vandalism and also transparency. So those who were in leadership were afraid, when we say anyone can edit, what's going to happen, to our data. And if it is a closed system where you have to log in and there's attribution and relationship and reputation established, you find that there is less chance of vandalism, and I would say disinformation and misinformation, if people are putting their reputation on the line behind the information that they're sharing. And so, and then the other big fear was, five-star generals saying, I'm not gonna edit the wiki because I don't want to say something and have somebody question me. But once you adopt this, radical transparency where everybody can say anything in the wiki, but that's tied to their reputation, you wind up with more sharing and more vetting and more you can trust the information. How does that translate into an environment where there can be anonymous editing and where you can't necessarily trust the reputation of those who are contributing. Well, that's where the power of Wikipedia comes in, where you've got this huge editor base where, and there are stewards and there are people who are vetting the information. Where you've got more danger is in pages that aren't watched, in smaller wikis, you know. And so there is no perfect answer, but you need to understand a little bit about your editing community, about the editing behavior, and what tools might help to make sure, you know, I think of one of the tools that was created at NASA in Houston, the Watch Analytics, where they had a concern about pages that were getting stale, that weren't being watched, that, and so they created a capability to understand and to make sure that the watching, the surveillance load across the wiki pages was distributed so that there were eyes on every page looking for errors, looking for things that might need to be fixed. So I really think the tool is the key is understanding your editor community and understanding what tools might help to better make sure that you are aware when disinformation or misinformation may be there.
Yeah, we can.
I just wanted to dovetail into that really quick. So everything that Cindy just said and Rich kind of mentioned, I totally agree with. And I think with knowledge workers in particular, not open wikis, because there's reputation and attribution, we don't really have to worry as much about disinformation, but outdated or sometimes mistakes. But building a culture and changing behaviors within a company to allow it to be okay to add something you think is right and to be proven wrong is a good thing. And so we want to have people accept that there will be wrong things in the wiki, and that's how we discover it. So it's like the sunshine is the best disinfectant idea.
I would just add to using that's exactly what we internally also do. Like anyone can edit, but you can watch your page. You can watch the topic you're interested in. You're even maybe in charge of, and this works in so also in closed environments, so to say.
I'll take the contrarian view.
Very good.
I think that a lot of the misinformation comes from people essentially not trusting the sources of the information. So we can get the information out there and we can do a perfect job, but there are people who don't trust whatever segment. And I think it's really all of us. There are certain segments of the population we don't trust. It might be the media, it might be the government, it might be the guy sitting next to you, right? There's somebody out there who you don't trust. And I will go further and say that that's a good thing. We need people who don't trust any of those institutions in order to question them, in order to keep them honest, because nobody deserves 100% trust. So you'll have to forgive me, but I think misinformation will always be there, and I think it's not necessarily a bad thing that we ever should try to solve completely.
Ward Cunningham once said that the best thing to do if you don't to get a response to something is to add the wrong thing to the wiki. Right. So that's why you have to have this information. I'm kidding. I actually wanted to just add on that note. So we did get to talk with Ward Cunningham in April, and what he originally said was supposed to be, if you don't know everything, add what you know, and people will add onto that to complete it, not to make something that's wrong to get the answer you want. Yeah. That was just a non sequitur. Just wanted to add that in for the misinformation thing. And Ike, that's a really risky thing to say considering what day it is in the US right now.
But I came across this this citation, which is now, I'm hearing that is obviously wrong or shortened, so I'm glad to hear this in the favor of Ward Cunningham. But in fact, sociologists have a nice term for this kind of really putting up the wrong stuff, to have the folks that have the knowledge and the pressure. If you have the knowledge, you feel the pressure to do something. They call it post-heroic management, And there has also been even a journal on post-heroic management. So this, but I would not like to see too much of post-heroic management in my company, because it of course always also takes effort, like to correcting all this stuff. So I'm glad that it's a not so correct citation. Thanks a lot.
That sounds interesting. Do you have a book recommendation?
Pardon?
About that part, that like view in sociology. Do you have a book recommendation?
A book recommendation? A book. I don't know if this journal still exists. I could come up with some names of German sociologists, mainly also dealing with the idea of Dirk Becker. Maybe we can translate it or something. I will get back on it. I have to think a little bit. But they have also the idea of that it's sometimes important for humans to reject knowledge. And that twisted a little bit my thinking about knowledge management, because if you analyze why folks don't use the knowledge or even actively reject it. So sorry for that. I can only point you to sociology in that case, and maybe I come back with some ideas later.
Post it in the element chat if you do.
Yeah, okay. So I'm not yet on Element, but I heard that you are on this chat, and I tried to figure it out, and so okay, I will join it. Thanks a lot.
Okay. I would like to come back to one aspect that all three of you mentioned. So you seem to be in agreement how important structured data is, also in Wiki. But so let me phrase it this way. I think it is undisputed how great the potential is for, let's call it the semantic web or semantics on the web. We have Wikidata, we have triple stores, we have Sparkle, we can have federated Sparkle computers, and we all know how powerful this is. The problem is, in organizational settings, organizations usually do not take this up. I mean, the semantic web people, I could say, have failed to deliver something that organizations are taking up. The question is, why? Is it really? Can the structure be just relational, or does it have to be the knowledge graph and the semantics? And why is semantics not there in organizations? You hardly find any. So in the projects that I did, I'm a heavy user of Semantic MediaWiki, but my customers usually, in 90% of the time, they don't even know what RDF is. They couldn't care less. I just say I can provide it as well, but they have no idea. So why is that, and what is relational structure enough, or do we need the semantics and the knowledge graph and what you talked about? I know it's hard.
So I think that's a great question. And in the semantic wikis we built, RDF wasn't even something we considered. And in fact, we almost hid the semantic tagging. So we built forms and templates, and so the users would enter their information into a form, so it was already sort of structured, and there could be some free text in there, but the concepts were all there presented to them. And so the users didn't have, they weren't confronted with an empty page to try and figure out how to hang their semantics off of it. But it's a double-edged sword, because that structure was already there for them, and what if it didn't exactly fit with their concept of how the data, just because somebody initially, when setting up the wiki, built the forms and the templates and the properties in a particular ontology, that might not always match every user's concept of how their data should all fit together. And we did find occasionally that after a wiki had been around for a couple years, that concept of the data changed, and we did, using global search and replace, using replace text and things like that, occasionally did you know, considerably restructure the structured data in there, and you could do that within the wiki because it wasn't hard-coded into database columns and rows and, you know. So, but I have, with the advent of AI recently and LLMs, which I am not an expert in, but I have begun to wonder about unstructured data and things that aren't a priori tagged, and whether, and it does not make me feel comfortable to think about a migration away from the human element of tagging data. And I really don't want to cede all of the power and responsibility to somebody's LLM for, you know, for structuring my data, but maybe there's some compromise in there in the future. But I do very much think that having a semantic value added to the data in a wiki makes it ever so much more powerful than just pages with wiki text.
Thank you. Did you want to add on?
I will add on it, but there's also a question from the audience, or a comment from the audience.
Okay, but I will plant a flag and come back.
Okay. Thank you so much for letting me talk right now, because I tend to forget very quickly what I was going to ask. I mean, I must admit, hi, I'm Gabriela, but please call me Gabs. I just arrived because I had to take care of my daughter today. This is why I'm late. So probably what I'm going to ask is, maybe it has been said or not, I'm an outsider to this wonderful group because I actually come from immersive technologies. And I'm, what you're talking about, the use of a new way to see semantics, right? Like right now I'm working on a project that has to do with spatial, a way to spatially analyze information. So it has to do with democratizing the process of leaving a legacy by gathering fragmented memories and unifying them and making the semantics of your life, and having conversational AI to assist you in this process. No? So what you were saying right now about how to use data creatively, or how to create wikis, no? Like, this is the reason why I'm here. Like, I'm trying to find out how I can merge like this concept of having this, from one side, your AI assistant that is helping you create the story of your life, and also how to combine this with the fact that you can share this knowledge about yourself anonymously with others, to connect with others through memories. Nice. Because as you can imagine, there's a big topic that is privacy, data privacy, and how to connect with others with your privacy being taken into consideration. And also, okay, does the information live in the cloud, or it lives locally, or is it a hybrid? I mean, there's so many questions that I have when it comes to organizing this information, and also how to facilitate people to access the information, no? Everything through a conversational way using AI. So I was wondering what your view is on this, or if you think I'm insane to try something like this, or... Yeah, thank you. I made a very long question, statement, comment, everything together. I hope I made sense, because sometimes I do too much in my head. So.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make a simple attempt. What I hear you talking about is data ownership, who's in charge of the access control lists, and I would bundle all of that into a topic called data sovereignty. And I worry that more and more, as all of us as consumers in the Western marketing sense, we are also producers of content. And more we are all being disenfranchised from our content that we create. And then, later down the road, we want to benefit from the content that we've created. Those are our memories, and those are our thoughts. But we have given it all away. We've lost our sovereignty, and I have a hope that that in the near future we will begin to realize that rather than letting a small number of digital media moguls have total control over all of the production of all of our artifacts, that individuals will rise up and reclaim and take ownership of their data again. And I think there's a change in infrastructure and a change of culture. These are all big obstacles that would have to happen. But I think my opinion is that in order to have the vision fulfilled that you described, people have to have a different relationship with their data than they do today. And that will involve a major shift in the way that data is owned. And my hope is that the open source community across the board, not just MediaWiki, the open source community, humanity, will collectively learn to value open source as a democratization of the tools that we need to reclaim and be sovereign and be competent to own our data. The major media moguls would argue that we're not competent to manage our data. We need to become competent, and we need those tools. And I think only a global open source value is going to empower all people to be empowered knowledge workers for themselves, for their families, for the companies they work for. This is a big vision. If we can achieve it, I think you get what you want, and many other wonderful things come out of it. I apologize if I over-answered that. Did you?
No? Is it? So I was just going a little bit cynically saying you can buy back your data from the mogul. Yeah, and I was really making the case for data sovereignty when I was in the parents' council in one of the schools, one of our children, and yeah, I was really disappointed. Like they had the idea that their job would be like educating the pupils to become better users of existing products of these monopoly players.
Yeah.
And I was always going like forward, this generation has to learn to read sources and to create software. I mean, especially here in Europe, in Germany, because all the big players, they are in most cases not from Germany. So, and it was really, I really had a hard time in the parents' council with that, because they were struggling so much with everyday problems that they thought the end to the education would be better users, but you should be better creators and even programmers. There is a nice book from, you were asking for books, it's not a German sociologist, but from Douglas Rushkoff, a media scientist from the US, called Program or Be Programmed. And it could be partly taken literally. I recommend this short book because this is about sovereignty. If you could create the things and be really the creator, maybe that could add to that. I could also add why the semantic stuff is not taken up in organizations. Should I still come back to this ground, or should we take this as closing words? Should we stand by that?
Well, I planted a flag, and I would like to come back to the flag that I planted.
You planted a flag?
Yes. So we had a wonderful question. Your question was, do we need knowledge graphs? Has the semantic web failed? And I think the answer to that question is to be determined. I like the idea of thinking that the semantic web was announced famously in 2001 by Tim Berners-Lee in Scientific American. It has gone through the hype curve, and it hasn't delivered what was originally promised. And they have discovered some of the reasons why. And with the advent of AI and large language models, I think that as the hype as AI and large language models work their way through the hype curve, I think there will be a new space opened up for a return to the semantic web. And I'll tie it all up with the following statement. I don't think we want to have database schemas that are incompatible. The software, the database for an inventory management system will be incompatible with the database schema for a project management system. And every area of focus for software, if you take the approach of purely structured data in a relational database, you have incompatible schemas. You can't combine the data easily without lots of additional glueware to try to translate between domains. The beautiful thing about the semantic web, the focus has always been on this resulting knowledge graph and the potential that could come, the implicit knowledge that could come out of the knowledge graph. But what I think gets overlooked by the excitement in that is simply the fact of having an ontology. And so as organizations, what Cindy mentioned was she's not comfortable with turning everything over to generative AI. And the balance that I think we can achieve is that if, as organizations, we focus on being ontologists, and every organization, rather than have a database expert developing a schema for their particular data function, if we start transitioning to ontologies, and specifically web ontologies, semantics, even though the knowledge graph falls out of that as a natural outcome, don't get distracted by the knowledge graph. Focus on the value of having ontologies, and that can keep the generative AI on track.
Yeah, perfect. I can probably add to this. So I would say, as you mentioned, ontologies, definitely on. So sometimes to provoke my colleagues in the AI research, I say semantic is what human beings did. Yes. So designing. So that's a very simple definition. Semantic is what humans are doing, and even I mentioned starting with a social web in Siemens and so on. Like we did tagging and simply labeling pages, and folks came and said, we can do this automatically. And say, yeah, you can try, but please tag your tags that are done by machines with a tag that they're from machines. Yeah. They didn't do so. Yeah, short answer would be semantics. What humans and experts are doing, and of course this could be complemented with LLMs doing suggestions. And often there's a misunderstanding between not misunderstanding, but misuse. Some talk about graph databases and thinking about we have to store everything in graph databases, and that obviously did not happen up till now. It is the same with this version management thing. I remember that in the 90s there were object databases, and everyone thought object databases would be the future, and I only see one use case where it's used in an outdated system in the medical office of my wife. So yeah, really. So there was this object database was nice software, but it never became mainstream. And of course, we don't know if this graph databases as technology become mainstream. It's open, but we should definitely use the vocabulary for sharing and opening up. And this is where I see the potential of even sometimes clunky RDF and often clunky ontologies. This is like opening up and linking your databases and having a well-defined vocabulary. So, and don't mix it up. Maybe in the end the triple store is faster than we ever expected, and then will become mainstream. But we should really enforce this linked open data approach and using those vocabularies to link data and not confuse one with the other.
Another comment from my side. So, yeah, we really looked a lot in this topic in material science. So, and we believe really inventing RDF was was only groundwork, and then the naive hope was that just having this technology will adapt it automatically in the world because it's so expressiveness is so high. So that's true, but the same as was true for neural networks. They were most of the decades, they were just an expert tool for AI researchers. And then you get this nice interface where you can just chat with it. And this was where it really skyrocketed. And this was, I think this is the missing piece for RDF as well. There are limited tools to really interact with RDF without seeing any RDF, because nobody wants to see RDF. Everybody wants to efficiently create RDF and, of course, profit from RDF capabilities, like querying, like having these links and having this complex answers, question-answer. I think we need to improve the tooling to make the base technology really adapted in our world. And I think we see also that in the OpenAI, for example, or Microsoft, they have RAG, and RAG is limited for large documents. And what did they create? They create GraphRag. What does GraphRag? It builds a knowledge graph of the document. So it really links the text pieces and tries to build a semantic meaning of relation of these pieces and what they mention. So at the end, LLMs, I think, came to a limitation of just having text, and now, again, semantics came into place to enhance even AI. And also in the industry, final example, it has very long time, but this data space bubble, finally, I think they settled down to something that is really industry exchange linked data. They start with something like DCAT, okay, but they now go really down into mains and describe, for example, these passports for batteries and this stuff. Now everybody creates at least his own ontology, first step, great, maybe they connect them in the future, but I think there's an enormous potential in automated data transformation between APIs, between database schemas, by using semantic. This is really not really used at all because we really lack of large amounts of semantically structured data until now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't know about you, I have the feeling this was a nice closing argument actually. So I don't want to take away your opportunity to close the session, each of you, so if you want to, you can, or you can also say...
I could only go downhill from here.
Okay, so thank you very much for this interesting panel.